One of the objectives of the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Retreat is to provide women an opportunity to travel, rest, renew, refresh, and experience the beauty of other places in the world. Therefore, I am excited to announce the 8th annual Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Retreat will be hosted in beautiful Costa Rica. Ladies, get ready to pack your bags and join me January 9th through the 13th, 2025 at Dreams Las Mareas Resort and Spa, set within the tropical rainforest on Playa El Jabo, with lush landscapes and stunning views from every corner of the resort. Come with your sisters, mothers, aunts, daughters, nieces, and girlfriends to be coached, trained, and taught by women who are professionally qualified to help us strategize and create the harmonious lifestyles we need and desire. Because harmony doesn't just happen, we make it happen. Get registered today. Take advantage of early registration discounts. Make sure you have a valid passport because we're taking the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Retreat to Central America in beautiful Costa Rica. Don't miss it. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so good to be here tonight. We are ready for a wonderful evening on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. Talk back, our first talk back of 2024. I'm so excited. We are getting ready to next week on next Monday. We will start season 12 of this podcast. Can you believe it? 12 seasons that we have been running this podcast starting next week. And so tonight, I am so delighted to have women from season 11 who are going to be with us for our season 11 podcast talk back. And I am so excited to have each and every one of you on with us. So I'm going to give some time for the ladies to get in the room. So y'all talk to me as you're coming in tonight. I see you, Juanita. I see you, Desiree. Yes, yes, yes. Y'all tag somebody, share, text somebody and tell them Dr. Tony is live with her guest on tonight. We're going to have a wonderful conversation. If you've been following this podcast, you know the depth and the information that we give on this podcast, the conversations that we have that are changing the narrative for women of color, changing our narratives. And we are excited about all the work that we're able to do through the Harmonize Your Life Self-Care Network. I am Dr. Tony Alvarado, the host of this podcast, and I am delighted to welcome you tonight to our first podcast talk back of 2024. We're going to look back at season 11 and we'll talk with our podcast guests from season 11 as we prepare to go into season 12. I see y'all coming in. Sherry Williams is in with us tonight. When you come in, why don't you let me know where you're coming in from? Drop something in the chat to let me know where you're coming in. Where are you tonight? Where are you? It's Monday evening. It's Monday. We're starting a new work week. Yes. Desiree Young. Yes, Desiree Young. Where are you coming in from, Desiree? Is that Tiffany Tolston Robinson? Oh, you're tagging people. I see what you're doing. Okay, Desiree, where are you? Are you in Stone Mountain tonight? Where are you? Veronica Melton Lamar, you're in Decatur. I see you. All right. Thank you for tagging women, Desiree, getting them in the room. Sherry Williams, tell me where you're streaming in from tonight. Veronica Lamar, Sherry Williams, Juanita. I assume Juanita is in Ellenwood tonight. Yeah, Miami, Florida. Sherry Williams, it's good to have you with us from Miami, Florida. Columbus, Ohio is in the house tonight. Shanita Gilchrist is in with us from Columbus, Ohio. Let's see here. Veronica, where are you tonight, Veronica Lamar? Y'all get your girlfriends, get your sisters and your daughters, your nieces, your mama, your grandmama, and tell her, yes, come on in. You're not too young and you're not too old for these grown women conversations that we are having. And I'm going to quickly bring my panelists, my dialogue partners in tonight. They are ready, they are excited, and they are ready to go. We're going to have a wonderful time on this evening. If you have not had an opportunity to listen to season 11, I want you to go back after tonight and catch up so you can be ready for season 12. But these ladies, if you've been listening, then I'm hoping that you brought some questions with you tonight so that you can ask our panelists some burning questions or whatever we end up talking about, because these conversations are organic. So we have an idea. We know we're going to be talking about self-care, health, wellness, and all that comes with that. But there may be some things that come up tonight in our conversations as we organically talk. And as we do that, I want you to engage with us tonight. If you have questions or you want to comment on something that you hear on tonight, please, please, please use the chat, use the comment feature so that we can engage with you on tonight. That's what the talk back is about. When you go to the podcast, it's really you listening to me and you listening to our guests and you listening to our dialogue. But tonight you actually get to dialogue virtually with our guests. So let me hurry up and bring them in. Let me first bring in Paula Birch Jackson. Coach Paula Birch Jackson is in with us tonight. I'm excited to have her with us. She is a sister beloved and a friend from years gone by. She is a coach, a realtor. Paula Jackson is, I want to say, a retired woman from her good government job. That's the way she says it. She says, I'm retired from my good government job with CDC. And so I'm thankful that you are in with us on tonight, Coach Paula. And let's see who else is with us tonight. Dr. Irene Abrams is in with us all the way from my city. All the way from my city.
Yes.
Illinois. Yes. Dr. Irene Abrams is in with us tonight, and she is the founder. She and her husband are the founder of Abrams Next Level Coaching.
Yes.
She is the dean of the business school there in Chicago. Because you work with the Joseph Business School.
Yes, yes.
And now you are with the
Generations College.
Generations College.
Yes.
And so we're going to be talking tonight with her. If you listen to her in the podcast, you know Paula and Irene went through the intentional self-care program with me last year. We talked about intentional self-care with them. And we talked about specifically with Dr. Irene about work-life harmony. And I'm hoping we can get into a little bit of that dialogue with you tonight. All right, let me bring this next powerhouse in. Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes is in. I'm so excited that she was able to join us tonight. This is a well sought out woman, y'all. She's not easy to get because she is busy, and everybody wants Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. They want to hear from her. She is a clinical psychologist, a professor of practical theology and pastoral care at Columbia Theological Seminary. Her work focuses on writing and ministering to clergy and faith-based activists and supporting women of color, particularly women who are involved in Christian social justice. She is the author of I Bring the Voices of My People, a womanist vision of racial reconciliation, Too Heavy a Yoke, Black Women and the Burden of Strength. Oh, yes. And we're going to have to talk a little bit about that. Black Women and the Burden of Strength. And then Sacred Self-Care Daily Practices, her newest book, Sacred Self-Care Daily Practices for Nurturing Our Whole Selves, of which I have right here in my library. All right. And I also want to say that Paula is an author as well. She's authored several books, Keeping It Real, So God Can Heal, Life After Death, From Grief to Glory, This Game Called Life, How to Master the Game and Win, and Navigating the Ways of Relationships. Ooh. from calm seas to blue skies. All right, let me see. Who do I have next? Cynthia Wheeler, CPA. I always like to put that behind her name. Cynthia Wheeler, CPA, certified public accountant, well-versed accounting professional with over 25 years in her field, progressive experience that she has there. Her career ventures include various positions with Fortune 500 companies, working with colleges, a lot of HBCUs that she has worked with and helped to keep us afloat. Amen. Universities and nonprofit organizations. And if you listen to Cynthia last season, season 11, you know that we talked about intentional self-care with her as well. She, Paula, and Irene went through the intentional self-care program with me last year, and we talked specifically about managing grief through intentional self-care. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and tease a little bit of that out tonight as well. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Cheryl Coleman is with us tonight. Dr. Cheryl Coleman is in with us. She is the founder and CEO of Abundant Living Health and Wellness Resulting Services, a nonprofit organization focused on 10-dimensional healing education modalities. And she has 30 years in healthcare, and that has 30 years in healthcare has positioned her to serve the faith community, working closely with faith-based organizations and surrounding communities, promoting health education, healthcare consultation, faith health support groups, health coaching, spiritual counseling, and implementation of community health initiatives. She's also the founder of Women Walking in Dominion, a faith, health, mentoring, and support group that utilizes Christian principles and holistic health education to facilitate the abundant life that Jesus came for us to live. All right. So listen, y'all, I don't fly with chickens, right? I fly with eagles. Ha! Right? So these are some eagles right in here in this room. We are soaring at the top of our field, but we know when to land and when to rest and when to do like the eagle. Because the one thing we love about the eagle, if you know anything about the eagle, you know the eagles fly high and they fly into the storm. But one thing about the eagle is the eagle knows when to stop and rest. The eagle knows when there's a season where they go through and they lay on the rock and they begin to strip themselves of their feathers and stuff. And then they lay there in the sun until they are rejuvenated and their feathers have grown back. And then they're able to fly even higher after a season of rest. And that's what I like to think about us as we're soaring and as we're flying, but yet knowing when to land and when to stop, when to breathe, when to, as I said last night in tea time, when to put ourselves in timeout, right? And when to withdraw and when to take care of ourselves. All right. So I'm so excited. So many other women have joined us in the chat. I see Deborah Patterson, Juanita Butler still with us. Desiree Young is with us. Quadana Lester. Yeah. Etna Wise. So many of you all have joined us tonight. Come on, I want to get these numbers up. I want to see more of you all. So please make sure you share, make sure you tag, let somebody know we're in tonight for a podcast talk back with Dr. Tony Alvarado and her guests on the Harmonize Your Life podcast talk back. All right, ladies, let's get into it. It's so good to have y'all with me tonight. How y'all doing?
It's so good to be here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Happy New Year, right? I know it's the 29th, but it's still January. So is it still appropriate to say Happy New Year?
It is.
That it is. That it is.
We made it. We made it. And can y'all believe the month is almost over?
That it is.
I know.
Almost over. Wow. So ladies, all of you, each of you were a part of our season 11 podcast series in October, November, and December. I believe Dr. Shaniqua and Dr. Coleman were a part of the October series, and we talked with Dr. Coleman about overcoming compassion fatigue. And then Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes, we talked with her from principles from her book, Sacred Self-Care, Daily Practices for Nurturing Our Whole Selves. And then in November, Cynthia and Paula came in, and we talked about, wait a minute, Cynthia, you and Irene were in December. November was Paula and Tamara. Tamara couldn't be with us tonight. She's traveling and couldn't be with us tonight. But we talked about intentional self-care with you all in November. And then in December, Cynthia and Dr. Irene came in with me, and we continued that conversation on intentional self-care, focusing on grief with Cynthia and focusing on work-life harmony with Dr. Irene. So I'm just gonna, throw this out there, and any one of you can just jump in and share. But as we are moving into this year, 2024, and coming out of 2023, just what is one of the things that you have decided to do as it relates? What are you focusing on this year as it relates to your own self-care, nurture, um, health, wellness? Where are you now as you move into this new year? I follow some of you. I know some of you personally, so I kind of know a little bit about you. And then some of you I follow. I love Dr. Shaniqua. I love your watching your posts. I appreciate your posts on Facebook, and I follow you on a couple of platforms, Facebook and Threads and Instagram, and I just kind of I love the way you move.
Mm. Thank you so much.
So I'll start with you, Dr. Shaniqua. What are you doing right now as it relates to your own self-care, health, and wellness? And what would you want the women to know based on that?
Yeah. So I've been on this intentional self care journey of mine for over 20 years. And, you might think that at some point I would just kind of arrive, but I
Yeah.
just find the deeper I go, the further I have to go, right? Like there's more and more. And so for me, this year is really about doing some of the deep work of trying to heal trauma, particularly intergenerational trauma that I feel like is in my, embedded in my body, and I'm really trying to learn how um, to get my fight or flight system to just rest, just go to sleep, just go to sleep, take a nap. And learning how to on the flip side activating the rest and digest system. So I've really been thinking a lot about the ways in which I am constantly feeding my body stress,
Mm,
right? And the ways in which I am often activated, even if I don't feel emotionally activated. And so wanting to do some real intentional work about learning how to breathe in deeply,
mhm.
this idea of relaxation as a way of trying to undo some of the harm that I think I've suffered and also that my ancestors have suffered.
Yeah, yeah. I like what you said, that resting, that fight or flight. And then just the idea of us being stressed, whether we know it or not, and learning how to recognize that. And like you said, chill. Just say, I had a situation happen today, where I was, yesterday I woke up and my power was out, and I had to preach twice on yesterday. Came home from church, the power was still out. And then on top of that, we had a water a pipe burst in our sprinkler system. So on top of that, the water had to be turned off, and we had to get a plumber out today to fix that. Ended up having to spend the night over my son and daughter-in-law's house last night. And so today I woke up so stressed. Coming home from my son's house this morning, had a little incident in the car. I had to call and literally just almost had a meltdown in the car, and just had to come home and just start over, put on my pajamas and go to bed. Literally, like it was a brand new night.
Yeah.
Just go to bed and go to sleep. And I said, I just need to reset.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. And it happens. I mean, and like you said, the deeper I go, the further I realize I need to go. So you've been on this journey 20 some years. I've been on it 20 something years myself. And yet it's a constant reminder. What y'all say? It's a constant, it doesn't end. We have to constantly remind ourselves of these principles.
Yeah.
What y'all think about that?
Yeah,
I'm
I
new
agree.
on the self-care journey. So, and I'm loving it. When you ask, like, what are we doing? I'm being intentional. One of the things I did at my new position is I made sure I'm not working 5 days a week. With that work-life harmony was important for me because I had to realize that I didn't have to always be black girl magic. I didn't always have to be go, 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 superwoman. And so for me, just being intentional about having 1 to 2 days to myself, it's okay. I just asked for it in my contract. I wanted to be remote. I needed a day off so that I could take care of myself. I'm very new to this, but I'm enjoying it. And I'm loving it. I was trying to figure out why didn't I practice self-care sooner? Why didn't I learn about work-life harmony sooner? I was under the impression I was living under the mantra that more, the harder you go, the higher
Mhm.
you'll go. And I was going hard, giving people my all.
Mhm.
And it was wearing me out. So
Yeah.
I'm with y'all. I go to sleep much earlier now. And I feel so much better, 100% better than I did before. I didn't even realize how much sleep I actually needed until now because I was operating on very little sleep because I was working all the time.
Yeah, and what something you said, Irene, and we worked on this when you were in the program, when we was talking about work-life harmony, and we were walking. I was coaching you while you were going through that transition with this, and from the previous job to where you are now.
Mhm.
What I liked about it was that you went in the door saying what you needed.
Yes.
And oftentimes, what we do, particularly when it comes to jobs, is we start with what the company or what somebody else needs rather than what I need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so to flip that to say, no, I've told them in my contract, this is what I'm going to need.
Hmm.
Companies will tell you all day what they need, but then we rarely tell them what we need. And I remember, Cynthia, you went through a similar thing with your job where you ended up, and here's the deal. Once you all spoke up, you found that you could have what you needed. You just didn't, but why don't we ask for what we need? Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
I think we've been trained, to overachieve and to keep overachieving, and we don't put ourselves in that equation at all. We're measuring success, I believe, the wrong way.
Mm. Say
That's
more
all.
about that, Cynthia.
Is that we're overachievers. We're all striving for that golden ring, which is non-existent in my case.
Uh-huh.
It is okay as Dr. Coleman, her emphasis on work-life balance, and I hear that, and I go in saying that, and sometimes I get people staring at me. I said, I'm interested in work-life balance. That's it. I, I'm, I'm shutting off at this time. Don't call me after this time. Still love you. I'll see you in the morning. So we're always pursuing that thing that, especially my generation,
Yeah,
which
because and like you said, when we were taught, the more you work, the higher up you're gonna go, and the more you'll be able to amass and all those things. And then that goalpost constantly is constantly moving. It's
Yes.
especially the Black women.
oh yeah, it's because nobody's gonna give us permission. And guess what? And no one's coming to save us.
Nobody.
No one is coming to save us, right? And so we got to save ourselves and save me, and then do what we're doing tonight, save each other, right?
Yes.
Help one another, which is what I love about these kind of communities. I think that's so important. When we were talking with Dr. Coleman last year, we talked about this overcoming compassion fatigue.
Mm.
And Dr. Coleman, if you don't mind, will you share with us you gave us like 5 things to be able to recognize when we're dealing with. And I think it kind of goes with what Dr. Shanika Walker Barnes said about the idea of the trauma that we carry in our body, and things that we have inherited even from our ancestors that we're carrying. And sometimes we're carrying stress that we're not even aware of. And you talked to us about that when you talked about overcoming compassion fatigue. Give us some of the signs of when, so we can know when we're when we're at that place of compassion fatigue.
And thank you for having me. And I'm so grateful to be among these amazing, amazing women. Um, as we think about compassion fatigue, we talk about self care, but you can't have self care without having compassion upon yourself. And so, as I begin to look at that and look at my own life and those I got to work with, I just notice a lot of us, especially those who are in ministry, those who are in the helping profession, and as women, we always helping, right?
Right.
And so, a lot of times, we're not only carrying our own stuff, but we're carrying the stuff of others that we're ministering to, that we're coaching, that we're counseling. And so, we're getting in, we got our own trauma, and then we get indirect trauma. And when all of that piles up on us, we begin to, you see your light shining, right? And there were 5 phases that you go through in our different assignments. And I know, Dr. Alberta, you love this. And so when we get our assignments and we start out wherever God has us, right? If it's in the corporate world, in our private settings, or whatever the assignment is, we start out really, really happy, and so this is what we call the zealot phase. You're excited. I have this assignment on my life. I'm gifted for it and I'm ready to do it. And you're moving and you're doing it and you have somewhat of a balance in your life. But as you go on with that particular assignment, especially those who are in caregiving, those who are ministering to others, things begin to shift for you. And then you can get into, if you're not careful with self compassion and self care, you move from this zealot, I'm really on fire, to this irritability phase. You start saying that this is not totally what I signed up for, but because we're conditioned to do what we do, especially as women of color, we have been conditioned, right?
Uh-huh.
That we're going to make it happen no matter
Uh-huh.
what. And so
Uh-huh.
we start to get irritable. And as
Yeah.
we're getting irritable, if our light bulb does not go off to say that I got to balance this thing out, we move to what we call the withdrawal phase, right? You're
Mm.
doing what you're doing. My body is here. I'm mechanically doing it, right? But there's no passion, there's no zeal, there's no love, there's no fire. And so that's kind of like the third phase. And then there's what we call the zombie phase, which is the fourth phase. And when you get into the zombie phase, you're really on autopilot and you're ministering from a dry place. When you think about compassion fatigue, self care, we think about our body, our hair, our nails, we go out, right?
Mhm.
But when you think
It's
about
so much more.
compassion fatigue,
Mhm.
of the 10 dimensions of health, all of them come in. Your emotion, your spirit, right? Your social life is out of whack. And we're not meant to serve to our detriment. And that's what I'm working on. I'm going to do what the Lord called me to do, but not to my detriment. Jesus came
I
to
love
do
it.
it, and
Yes,
I was
not
like,
to my
Lord,
detriment.
so I done made up my mind. I'm gonna do it, but not to my detriment. Because
Mhm.
the fifth phase is what we call the pathology or victimization phase. This is where the light bulb comes on to say that I got to do something, or my life force is going to be out of here. And
Yeah.
so, as Jesus was moved to compassion, we have to be moved to compassion. Yes, to care for others, but to care for ourselves. And so, for me in 2024, personally, it's my year of grace and truth.
Mhm.
Grace,
Mm.
extending it to myself, right? We always giving grace to others, doing and what have you, but we got to give grace to ourselves to recognize our own truth. I'm not the end all be all. I ain't, I try, we're Christians, right? But we ain't Jesus. Some stuff we got to let go and allow others to do some things. And so I'm working on that as I extend grace and truth. And then
Grace
truth
and truth.
doing the heart and soul work that I heard Dr. Walker Bonds, and I think I've heard her in my other hat with Faith in Florida. I'm a social justice organizer, so I know I've seen you in different spaces, and we were looking at one of your books. And so when you live in your own truth, you recognize there's some things that we have to work on, and we can't cover it up. Because I have, in my years, served and served and served and not dealt with my own traumas and cycles that I'm seeing over and over in my life. And I said, I'm not serving to my detriment. I'm going to have some abundant life. So I'm being intentional about time, intentional about relationships, and definitely
Yes.
physical things that I need to do
Amen.
within my body. And when I say relationships, not having, and I say this in a loving way, when you are, in ministry sometime and you're a giver like that, you'll look around your circle and you don't have a lot of pouring into you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be intentional about those who are
Mhm.
iron sharpening iron and
Yeah.
encouraging and speaking life into Cheryl as I serve others. And so that's kind of
That's
where I
good.
stand in
I
2024.
love it.
Yeah, that's good.
Grace and truth. And I thank you for giving us those 5 phases too. Because let me check the chat just a minute. I want to see if anybody want to be real on here and let us know if you've identified with any of those phases: the zealot phase, the irritated phase, the withdrawal, zombie, or pathology, or victim phase. If you don't mind sharing, ladies on the chat, if you want to say, "Hey, that's where I am," because it's good for us to recognize. And when you talked about that, I could see myself going through each of those phases at
Yeah.
different points in my life. Come on,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
I've been there, and what's interesting is I may not be in that phase in every area of my life, but there are certain I can point to maybe certain places in my life where I'm in one stage or another. Is that possible?
Absolutely, because you got multiple assignments, right? And
Right.
so sometimes in one assignment you're here, and in another assignment you're
Yeah.
like, Lord, am I on track? Am I in alignment? Whatever. There's a lot of evaluation, and then sometimes that's a good still space to be in, for you to begin to look at how much am I doing? What do I need to give up? At certain points in our life,
Yes.
we need to make sure that yes, we're doing what we call to do, but I'm gonna say it over and over, not to our detriment, right?
I,
That's
Enjoy
good.
this.
Like that.
yes, yes. Juanita says, I've cycled through the phases, but I find myself zealous again as I establish boundaries. Good.
Mhm.
Powerful,
Juanita.
powerful.
Powerful, powerful. Shanita Gilchrist says, definitely zombie. I love what Dr. Coleman said. Truth and grace, had to write that down. Good, good, good. Get this and follow and make sure you look these women up. Go back to season 11 in October. Dr. Coleman did a whole episode on this on the Harmonize Your Life podcast. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, this would be a good time to do it. Go to Dr. Tony Alvarado on YouTube. Go to the October series there. Dr. Coleman did a whole series on a whole conversation with me on compassion fatigue, overcoming compassion fatigue, and then you can get her information, follow up with her or any of these women, so that you can get the help you need. We're not just doing these. We're not just having these conversations to be having them. We really want change. We want,
Mhm.
and nothing is going to change if we don't confront what needs to be changed in our lives, right? We can talk about it all day, but change doesn't happen until we confront it and until we look at it for what it really is and do what we need to do about it. Dr. Coleman, me coming into this year, one of the things that I did coming into the year and I'm still doing and working through is letting go of some things
Mhm.
that I love and that I have done well, but knowing that when my season is up for certain
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's where I am in this year, really identifying where should I be and what should I be passing on to somebody else. So and moving on from, right? Because sometimes what hooks us is past success.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's good.
We've been
Yeah.
successful in the area. We want to continue to hold on to it because we've experienced success there. But just because you've experienced success there doesn't mean you need to still be there,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we live in the past and all of that instead of moving on. And so that's where I am. I love that grace and truth. I love what you said, Dr. Shaniqua, about that, put identifying trauma in
Mm.
your life and resting, putting chilling out. I mean, really, really chilling out because revved up all the time. I think somebody said in the chat that they always on ready, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have to always be on ready. We don't have to always be on, and we don't always have to be doing something, right? Deborah Patterson said, I've been in all of those phases and sometimes two or more at the same time. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. Desiree says she's been in all, she could see herself in all those but the victim
Wow.
stage. All right.
Mhm.
Good, good, good.
That means she
all right.
caught it, Dr. Alvarez. That means she caught it, right? When
Yeah,
you get in that phase, that means you caught it. Caught it. Caught it.
Before you got there.
Mhm.
Exactly. Paula, tell us what you thinking about. Where are you right now?
You know what? I entered in 2024, similar to a lot of stuff that you said, Dr. Coleman, but embracing my truth and all that I am. And one of the things I had to do is to face and confront my silent stress. What I mean by that, it was so many things that I had internalized. Dr. Tony, I talked to you about my acronym. I ain't gonna say the acronym, but it was shame, hurt, insecurity, and trauma. And I was talking about that, but a lot of that stuff was in me, but I had internalized it so much that I had to start facing my shame, hurt, insecurity, and trauma.
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
still
That's
that.
so good.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
And listen, we all got that, right?
Yeah, all of us.
Right.
Your shame, your hurt.
Insecurity and trauma.
Yeah.
And trauma. And I had to deal with that. And that was some phone calls I had to make. God says the beginning of the year, where you're going in 2024, you can't carry that weight with you. And so some of the silent hurt that I had, meaning things had happened to me, Dr. Coleman, you talked about iron shaping iron. You're always pouring in people. And you really thought that you had this supporting cast until you realized that you didn't.
Yeah.
And then you realize that this what you thought was your supporting cast was really ankles, were weights on your feet that you were dragging. It was draining you. So I had to let those go, and I had to make some phone calls, and I had to be the bigger person in the phone calls. I had to say some stuff like, you know what, forgive me, even if I hadn't did anything wrong. God said to me, "Is it more important for you to be right or righteous?"
Right.
I chose righteous.
Yeah.
And then when I made those phone calls and lifted those weights, I'm good now. And one of the things he left me with was truth requires no justification or no explanation. I'm gonna stand in my truth and nobody have to like it. It's no justification and no explanation. I am who I am, and I'm and I enjoy being her.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
I
beautiful.
am who I am and I enjoy being her. I love that. And I like the idea that that you said you made those phone calls, because sometimes in order to get through these traumas, we do have to have those critical conversations that can be very uncomfortable. Because usually they involve people we love, right? Let's tell the truth. It usually involve people that are closest to us. And sometimes in that whole compassion fatigue thing, what I had to learn was, I had to start looking around. I recognized that I was pouring into a lot of people, but I was starting to ask, well, who's going to pour into me? Like, who's pouring? And finding spaces, because we're people who give out. We're teachers, we're professors, we're pastors, we're caregivers. We're in a helping profession, right? Sometimes we find ourselves spending all our time in those settings, and where we're giving out. And rarely do we put ourselves, and I say put ourselves, I mean intentionally put ourselves in spaces that are life-giving and refreshing, and not just spaces where we are doing the pouring out. Sometimes you just need to be somewhere where you're not in charge.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
That was one of the reasons why I took the program, Dr. Tony, because I found myself in that perfect storm where I was stressed out at work, working all the time. I became a caregiver. I was going through a lot of different traumas that I was dealing with. And I found myself in a perfect storm where, like I think Desiree said, before I became the victim, before I got to that last stage, I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to have like this awakening, like something to shake me, because I didn't know that it was, compassion fatigue. I didn't know that. until now. But that's really what I was experiencing with being stressed out, the weight gain, breaking out. I had severe acne, severe eczema, severe.
Irene, let me tell you, girl, you look so different. I was looking at you the other day. You did a TikTok,
Uh-huh.
and I said, "Look at you." I mean, you physically look different
Yes.
than you did when you came into the program last year. With you could see the stress on you last,
Mhm.
Wow.
and you
Oh,
look like a
yeah.
totally different woman today.
I think I broke down and cried. Like, I think you just said introduce yourself. And I was like, you know, because there was so much, going on that I just needed to change. And I'm just grateful that I was able to do that. God just really showed me, hey, it's time to make a change. And I've been able to stand my ground. And I love what you all, are saying, just being comfortable in your skin and just being unapologetic to who you are. So for me, like you said, just finding people to pour back into you where I'm not the leader. I just trusted. I said, I'm just going to take this program. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I know it's time for a change. And
Mhm.
not knowing what that change was going to be. And then you, Cynthia, you gave your testimony. I was like, that's my confirmation. That's my word to do what I need to do. And I did it immediately after that. That's God sent her to
Good.
tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to act on that. So
Okay.
I'm just very happy and grateful for that. And I believe that the program was one of the main reasons I was able to get out of that situation, get off the hamster wheel.
Mhm. I'm thinking about Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. I'm thinking about your work with the burden of strength for Black women. Talk, because that idea of us finding a place where we don't have to be strong.
Yeah. It's so interesting because listening to this conversation and watching the comments on the in the chat, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, we're a bunch of strong Black women in recovery, right? And so,
Yeah, say
yeah, I mean, right? Like we're trying to find our way, but
Yes.
this is part of the burden. Is it has to do with those being the overachievers that Cynthia talked about, the caregivers that so many of us have talked about as women, as girls, we're socialized to be caregivers. And so my first book, Too Heavy a Yoke, is about the burden of the strong Black woman and these three characteristics: caregiving, independence, and emotional strength.
oh,
This idea that we're trying to be all things to all people while appearing as if we have it all together,
mhm,
right? And we can be so focused on caring for other people. And it's not even just people we love, it's everybody, right? It is our workplaces. Like we're the one, it doesn't matter what our job is, what our role is. We're they talk about us as the backbone of the institution, or we couldn't do anything without her, or how would we survive without her? Like we're the ones who everybody knows they can rely on.
mhm.
But
Caregiving, and what was the other two?
caregiving,
Mhm.
independence. So this
Independent.
idea that we don't know how to receive, we're giving out a
Mhm,
lot,
mhm,
but we don't know how to receive love, right?
mhm,
We can only see ourselves as givers, and often get uncomfortable when people try to help us because we've been so conditioned to take care of ourselves,
mhm,
right? And to keep our eye on the prize and to be upwardly mobile. And
mhm,
then the other one is emotional strength, this
mhm,
idea that we will not show vulnerability very often. And when we do feel stressed, even if we manage to let ourselves feel it, we stuff it down, right? We'll often say we're the problem.
Yeah.
I'm not strong enough. I need to buck up. I need to put on my big girl panties, right? We say all of that stuff to keep ourselves going, and meanwhile, we're ignoring the signs that our body is giving us, the
mhm,
signs that our spirit and mind are giving us, that like we're crumbling under the pressure, but we often don't realize it until it's too late. So, it's one of the reasons we hear so often Black women in these high profile positions, or Black women who just suddenly die,
Yes.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
In
yeah,
40s and 50s and
yeah,
60s,
yeah,
right? She just suddenly died.
Yeah.
right? And it's because we tend to carry so much and then not to pay attention to how it's hurting us until it gets to the point where it's too late.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you know when say the name of your book again, Shanita Gilchrist.
Too heavy a yoke.
Too heavy a yoke.
Yeah.
Too heavy a yoke. I'm gonna type it in the chat. Too heavy a yoke. And is there a subtitle to it, or is that it?
It's Black Women and the Burden of Strength is the subtitle.
Okay. Black women and the burden of strength. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So how when this whole independence thing, this idea of what were the caregiving, independence, and emotional strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we how do we untangle ourselves from this? I mean,
Yeah.
in I know we're having the conversations, but what are some strategies and ways we untangle ourselves? Because a lot of this is inherent. Like you said,
Yeah.
somebody said it earlier, we've been conditioned, we've been socialized to be this way,
Yeah.
right? We saw our mothers do it, we saw our grandmothers do it, and auntie and you know women that we look up to,
Yep.
we see them doing it, right?
Yep.
And then we even put it on our own children, our own girls, right? So
Yeah.
we pass it on to the next generation. How do
Yep.
Mhm.
we untangle ourselves from this?
Yeah.
Dr. Sony, I was having a conversation with my daughter,
Mm.
who is 32, I think, and a couple of years ago, and I was talking about this behavior you just described, Dr. Walker Bourne. And I was telling her, well, I was conditioned a lot of this because I'm just like my mama. I'm just like my grandmama. And my daughter is like, that curse stopping right here. I ain't doing all that, right? Then I was like, but it's conditioned. She says, no, mom, that's not conditioned. She says, because when something is conditioned, you can change the condition of something.
Hmm.
You've been ingrained. And she says, when something is ingrained into you, she said, it's a process. And we've just got to learn how to go through that process. And
Yeah.
when something is ingrained, you think about someone take something and they put I always think about a piece of wood. And if someone take a knife and cut into that wood, it is a process. You got to sand it, you got to buff it, you got to go through some processes. And ever since Rashina said that to me, and when I hear one of these, I feel one of those ingrained things that I do, that I said, okay, and I have to go through the process. I have to start sanding that process. Some of that stuff I have to buff out. I have to ask myself the question, why do you think that way anyway?
Yeah.
How is that serving you?
That's that confronting.
That's the question. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And often confronting the ways that we're participating in it, right?
Mhm.
Talk
So,
about
we
Yeah.
get socialized and conditioned into these ways of being. And at some point, we take it on, we buy in, and we start doing it. And often, we are the biggest impediments to our own healing,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right?
yeah.
So, the reason everybody's dependent on us because we keep giving and we keep doing,
We keep showing up.
and we're uncomfortable with the idea of not showing up, right? Because sometimes we get some benefit out of being that one, right? Everybody sees
Yeah.
us as the person to come to. We feel important. We feel like we're being good servants of God, right? It's all these ways. It is the caregiving part is so seductive because people they celebrate that for us, right? Like she always been there for me, and then you feel like you always got to be there, right? They talk about you, they'll give you, might give you awards for that. But then when you start to say, wait a minute, I'm going to start to put some of my energy into me. What Dr. Coleman said is absolutely right. It starts with self compassion.
Mhm.
That care I'm giving to everybody else, I'm turning that inward,
Mhm.
right? And so that means I'm not showing up for you. And then we have to deal with our own grief around that, the
Yeah.
shame,
Mhm.
Paula,
Yes.
right? We have to deal with
Yes.
the shame
Yeah.
around the guilt around, okay, if I'm not showing up, does this mean I'm not a good friend? I'm not a good daughter. I'm not a good mother. If I
I'm not a
say
good pastor.
I'm not a good pastor, right?
Mhm.
If I pull back, what does that mean? It taps into our insecurity.
Mhm.
And it's one of the ways that we do it because it feeds our insecurity. So we
Mhm.
have to learn how to pull back and manage the insecurity, get help managing the insecurity,
Yes. I was
right?
just
So part of it is looking at ourselves honestly, figuring out what supports we have. right? Is that support a therapist,
Yes.
right? Is there a friend who will support us? But often it takes somebody else to help us to see the patterns and then to learn how to receive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When
That's
people
it.
say, how can I help you? It took me years of practicing self care to be able to answer that question,
Yeah.
right? Because initially I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to recognize when I needed help.
You
I didn't
probably didn't even know what you needed.
Right. I didn't know what I needed. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know help was a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I
Mm-hmm.
like it didn't occur to me that
Mm-hmm.
somebody else could be
Yes.
helpful to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to learn how to pay attention to the fact that, oh wait, I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's an indication that I need help. And sometimes it's I don't have to have the answer to what kind of help I need. I just need to be able to say, right, so maybe it's going to the boss and say, you know what, I've been taking on all this extra stuff. I can't do this anymore. I need to pare down. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not up to me to fix it and to figure out how to pare down because they the boss, they the one making that money. So it's up to them to figure out how to do it, right? Like, and so for me to just say, I'm not going to take this on, but a lot of it we have to work with ourselves first,
Yeah.
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 and it's hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes just making a very small step. It seems easy and it's easy to say, but sometimes it takes just taking. Just say no and walk away.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the easiest things to do
Mm.
when you and some of us as mothers, what we carry sometimes for the
yeah,
family. We just have to say, and we want to go back and fix it. Oh Lord, the temptation is there because it's on our show. No, who's cooking tonight? Not me.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
so it takes small steps and I don't have a PhD in this, but just
no,
just
that's,
just
Don't.
constantly it's a just keep doing it, doing
yeah,
one thing after another, and with your employers, with your husbands, with your friends, with your children, and sooner or later, even if they don't get it, you're doing good for yourself.
you are. And
Mm-hmm.
you're doing good for them too,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? And they might not realize it in the beginning, but
That's true.
ultimately we are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just
Dr. Coleman, you're going to say something there. I see you.
I guess I just wanted to lift up as I was listening to everybody, and I just wrote down when silence is no longer golden. We've been taught silence is golden, and I started writing a little book. Maybe this is time for me to get it finished. Uh,
Yeah.
Silence is no longer
Yes.
golden,
It's
right?
time for you to get it
Yeah.
finished.
Silence is no longer golden, right? If you are hurting so much on the inside that you're not living that abundant life. And
Mm-hmm.
I find sometimes that I'm able to advocate for others. I'm a great advocate. Don't let me get started if you're not doing right by the people and their health and their whatever, I'm there. But growing up being taught like you don't when the grown-ups speak, you don't say, I don't know, like it was like my voice for me, for
Yeah.
Cheryl, was
Uh-huh.
not necessarily open. And I'm in that space of that grace where silence is no longer golden when it's costing me life force,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
To be able to articulate and to be okay that if it's somebody that I'm sharing, if they truly love me, they're going to allow me to express myself. But if
Yeah.
I
Mm,
can't share with you what I'm going through, you know what I'm saying? You can't hear me, you can't see me, you can't feel me. Those are the come to Jesus meetings for me to like, whoa. So silence is no longer golden. And so if I can't talk to maybe those in the space, I'm lifting up therapy right here. Because all of us, since the pandemic, I don't care who you are and where you are, we are all grieving.
Yep.
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
We've all been traumatized. And
Oh,
when we deal with trauma, it rewires our brain.
Yes, it
And
yeah.
so,
does.
therefore, thought is a process, right? We take in a thought, we think 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts, we make 35,000 decisions a day. If
Yeah.
we don't get ourselves the help that we need to be able to help our thought process, we're not going to live our best life. And after a while, those that, because of our influence is not just us, it's
Yeah.
those who are around us.
Yeah.
We affect every, we women, we
Yeah.
affect
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
bitterness defiles what? Many, right? And so if
Yeah.
we don't get to help our thought process, and so as I'm thinking something, I'm working on rumination versus meditation. We know we're supposed to meditate on the word of God, but when you got trauma, you begin to ruminate, pray that thing over and over in your mind, who's not there, what the hurt, what the pain, what the shame is. And if you don't necessarily deal with that, and a lot of times it takes a trusted therapist to walk you through that journey. And it's okay for us as leaders, as women, as people that people look up to have those people in our lives to help us through that journey. So I just wanted to kind of lift that up. I know we got a lot of expertise here, but silence is no longer golden. We're going to get the help that we need, if it's a therapist, a coach, a mentor, however. Iron sharpens iron.
Say it again for the people in the back.
And also finding communities too.
Yes.
Finding safe communities and connecting. That's what I love about what we're doing. We're creating community here. We're creating a safe place. We're coming together and we're sharing. And then it gives other women an opportunity to share when they hear us, and they can leave this space and maybe find the strength to go and talk to somebody, or identify where they're one of those areas of self compassion or compassion fatigue that they might be in, or to identify those areas of trauma and caregiving, independence, emotional strength. It's putting ourselves in healthy communities too, and creating healthy community within our midst, so that we can get the help we need. Because therapy is one way, but and I, I'm a proponent for therapy, but also beyond therapy. When you leave the therapist's office, where are you taking yourself to? Where are you going? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we leave the therapist's office and we go right back into a toxic environment.
What I was going to say, Dr. Tony, when you was asking about strategies and tips too, just thinking about myself, I just had a made up mind. So my mindset began to change. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you have to change, your mindset really had to change. And so for me, that was a big thing. After our sessions and things like that, I was sat back and I watched and like what the good Reverend just said, I mean, silence is not golden, because I am an introvert by nature, and I would be quiet, like I'm just gonna keep the peace. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to keep the peace. Like, I didn't even know. You guys, this is how God is so good. We had this prophet come to our church, and he said, "You are a disruptor." And I was thinking, I am? I didn't know. I didn't know I was a disruptor. He said, "You are a disruptor." He goes, "God has called you. You don't want things the same." And I don't want things to be status quo, but I didn't want to. I was like, let me just keep the peace. And I think I told you this, Dr. Tony, I promise I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to be good. I'm going to keep the peace. I'm going to be consistent. And then it was just like my mindset started to change. And I was like, no, I'm not keeping the peace anymore. I'm going to speak up not only for myself, but for everybody else. So this is not right. And I'm not going, and it just got to be, now I just don't know. The lioness has woken up. And I'm not going to be silent, especially when it comes to my detriment. So I definitely agree. But I definitely, a step or a key to that is you have to change your mindset. So you won't go to therapy and go back to that toxic environment. You have to change your mind.
And when you go to therapy, tell the truth too. Because sometimes
period.
Always disclose everything that we need to. But then when we leave therapy, what things are we doing in our lives that bring us refreshment, that help keep these principles in front of us? Are we having these conversations? Are we holding one another accountable to these things? Are we saying, hey, who's in your life that can even pull your coattail? Because even like you said, Dr. Shaniqua, even though we know these things and we're doing them, we can still find ourselves really needing to be pulled back into where we need to be and confronting the issues that we need to confront. And so that's why I love having you all in my life, because I know that if there are people in my life like you, and you see me off here, and you might be able to put them to the side. Hey, Tony, not Dr. Tony, Tony.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, how are you really doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And
Yeah.
having people in your life that can speak to you at that level and you're listening to them,
Yeah.
right? And not having to put on a face that
Right.
everything is okay
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not hurt or I'm not
Mhm.
depleted or I'm not in one of those phases of compassion fatigue. We have to have places where we can share those things. Y'all, do y'all have any questions for the ladies? Those of y'all that are in the chat tonight, I see so many of you all on with us tonight, and a lot of you all are sharing here. Catherine wrote said it's hard to ask for help. When I ask for help, I don't receive it. I found out that I had to get a relationship with God for myself, and I went through a period of silence. Anybody want to say anything to Catherine behind her
Yeah.
behind that?
I'm glad you lifted up that comment because I'd seen it and I wanted to respond to it.
Okay.
When we are those folks who are always giving, we tend to attract people who are takers, right? We often can't see that in ourselves, but we are surrounded by people. And so we can feel like we have a big network. When we're strong Black women, we can be surrounded by people. But as several of us have said here, when it got to the point where we needed help, we looked around and realized there wasn't really anybody there. So one thing recovery does, it requires us to get serious and get honest about our relationships. Who are our where are our relationships that are based on reciprocal give and take?
Mm.
I was looking at over in the corner on my altar. I have this tiny vase filled with a couple of marbles. My therapist gave me the marbles.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me who the people were in my marble jar. So she gave me marbles and she gave me a little container. And she said, think through who the people are in your life that you know you can absolutely count on. And I only had a couple of people when I started, right? I mean, I was really thinking about that and I was like, huh,
Wow.
yeah.
Mhm.
But the thing is, I over time I've gotten a few more marbles. There are less than 10 marbles in my jar.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm real clear on who those people are now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know when I need to ask for something, this is who I go to.
Mhm.
I also know now which relationship should I be pouring into.
Mhm.
It helped me to prioritize. Wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
This aunt over here, this cousin over here, they're always in my corner. They have always been here for me. I don't call them enough. I take them for
Mhm.
granted, right? And so I learned, wait a minute, now that I know who my marble jar people are, those are the relationships I'm going to nurture.
That's
Yes.
So
good.
sometimes we
That's
have to get serious about that. Sometimes we have to build that community. That's hard as adults, especially if you're introverts,
good. Mhm.
Yeah.
like Dr. Irene and I. And so it might not be a lot of people, it might be a little.
You know what? And you know, Dr. Shaniqua, I don't think it has to be a lot of
I
people.
don't think it has. I'm perfectly fine now knowing I got about 4 or 5 marbles.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's,
But those,
yeah.
Well,
there's some good marbles.
That's
I mean, they good.
all you need. Yeah. That's right. That's
that's
like
good.
that's all you need. You don't need a whole lot, but
Yeah,
you need some,
you
right?
need
And
some.
you need to be able to be clear about who those are.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Barnes, while you talking, somebody Juanita asked the question, can you give tips to rest, fight, and flight?
Yeah, so one thing I'm doing, real simple things, and here's one that we probably all do. How many times do you eat on the run?
Mm-hmm,
Do
mm-hmm,
you eat while working? Do you
mm-hmm,
eat at your desk? Eat in your car?
mm-hmm,
So one of my strategies for this year is I'm going to sit down and eat a meal at the table. It
mm-hmm,
doesn't have to be a big meal. Sometimes it's just a morning cup of coffee where I'm going to sit at this table and not multitask and just drink my coffee so that my body can be in a rest and digest stage and not in fight or flight when I eat. The other thing is can I buffer my schedule so that I'm not running from one meeting to the next,
mm-hmm,
one event to the next?
mm-hmm,
Pad it 15 minutes. Just time to transition, right? As opposed to thinking, okay, how much time do I have? Trying to maximize time. And then also giving myself more time to get places as opposed to run it. Okay, if it starts at 1, I'm walking in at 1.
Right,
Right.
right, right,
Like I
right,
want to start walking in at 10 till
right,
and
right.
be relaxed walking
And be
in, right?
relaxed. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
you know,
those are
we
real
have to,
small.
you have to really look at that. That's so funny you would say that, because the other day I found myself rushing from one place to the other, and I stopped and I asked myself, why are you having to rush? And it was because
Yep.
I was putting too many things
In a day.
in a day.
Yep.
And I literally said to myself, I need to stop and look at my day so that I'm not rushing to everything. Because I found myself running from this to that. And it was like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I looked at my calendar and I was like, I had too many things that I was trying to get done in a day. And listen, the older you get, you need a little bit more time.
You sure do.
You just need a little bit. I can't get up rushing in the morning. I need to sit still and rock on the side of the bed for a minute.
In my bedroom this morning, because I was literally thinking that. I was like, I just don't move like I did in my 20s. And I was like, I need to accept
I need
it takes a lot more time.
I need to enter the day slowly.
That's the grace. Give yourself the grace.
That's great.
Into the day. I'm telling you do. Saturday, this past Saturday, I was it was raining, and you know, because I'm up in the mornings and I work out in the mornings. Sometimes even that can be injurious, because you get in this routine, if you will, of I got to get up, I got to work out, and even though it's things I'm doing that quote unquote healthy, it can also become a burden.
Yep.
Of I got something else I got to do, right?
Yep.
Saturday I woke up and I literally stayed in my pajamas all day. Only reason I put clothes on Saturday was because my sister's birthday and we were taking her to dinner. Otherwise, I would literally probably been in them same pajamas until Sunday. But anyway, I literally stayed in my pajamas all day. But what was interesting was I woke up Saturday morning. Listen, see, this is the kind of stuff like what you're talking about, Dr. Shaniqua. My first thought was, you need to get up and go downstairs and get on your Peloton bike. Now, there's nothing wrong with riding a Peloton bike, but that wasn't what I needed at that time.
Right.
And I listened to my body, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, not today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I came, sat in my prayer room, got this little chair that I bought so that I can sit still, that I wasn't sitting still in, right? And I sat there, and it was raining, and I made me a cup of tea and just sat and listened to the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
It was
beautiful.
the most refreshing morning.
Yeah. That's
The
awesome.
most so sometimes it's not that you need to get up and go to the gym
Right.
or whatever. Sometimes it's just sitting still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Getting back to your sacred rhythms.
Getting
Mm.
the sacred rhythm.
That's where I met Dr. Alvarado. And that's what was a life changer for me there. Realizing that I was off my sacred rhythms, doing all of the good things, but not the great things. And so not studying the word to preach and to teach, but because this is where God is speaking and pouring back into me in his word spiritually. That don't replace that you need natural interaction, but spiritually, right? And you're not doing all of the busy work just for the work of the ministry and the community, but just for you. And then I felt after that beautiful time, I brought me a tambourine. They probably looked at me like I was crazy when I got back at church, right? Doing my dance again, right? And I could feel myself hearing the spirit in a different way. And
Yeah.
so we can do all of these things, but I teach on the 10 dimensions. The spiritual dimension of health is first. And so thank God for all that he has given us in the scientific community. But if the Bible tells us the spirit of a man can bear any infirmity, if you are broken in spirit, I don't care how much Medicaid, all of the things we have, it's a fight with your body. And so the spiritual piece for me is definitely, and I just get excited talking about it. I don't mean to monopolize, but that is so
You're
very
No, it's good.
important. And whatever that is, if it's reading, if it's just like you, the environmental, right? dimension of health, listening to the rain, the environment that God has provided us to have dominion over. So
Yes.
those sweet moments that the busyness and the hustle and the bustle has snatched away from us, going back. And for me, the pandemic opened that up, right? It shut us down to sit down. Now that we're opening back up, let's not,
Girl,
whatever.
let me tell y'all something. I told somebody the other day, I wish we could have another shutdown.
I'm with you on that one.
Right. I ain't trying to go back to death tolls.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
We need a national, just everybody sit down somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
We missed the moment with that. There was a lesson in that for us,
Yes.
and we missed it, right? There were ways that we saw that. One of the things I want to say too, I'm sitting here, my mug with my number one mom mug that my son gave me. This is something we can teach our kids too.
Yeah.
When my son was about 3 or 4, we did the thing parents do when we put him in a little one of them little t-ball leagues, and we had games on Saturday mornings, and we have a picture of him sitting in the middle of the field, with his glove, just crying. I mean, just crying, right? And every morning we took this boy to t-ball. He just had a fit. We finally realized this boy needed what he called a pajama day. Once a week, he had to have a day where he stayed in his pajamas all day long. He's now 15 and he still does this. And we began to pay attention and realize the difference between how he acted during the week if he had his pajama day and if he had not. If he didn't get that pajama day on Saturday, Monday through Friday, there was hell to pay in the morning. I mean, it was night and day. But if he got that day, he was good to go. Right. And so to realize that, and so one of the gifts we tried to give him as parents, once we realized that, we said, okay, no more Saturday morning t-ball.
Yeah.
Right. No, he would like to do that. We would like to do that with him, but it can't be then. And so we'll have to trade off on that. That's less activities, right? And as he gets older, we've been teaching him about that, right? So he still sometimes spends most of Saturday or Sunday, like in his pajamas. And we'll be like, you want to go out and do something? He'll be like,
you see that comment in the chat, say, I need a pajama day.
Yes.
Put it on the calendar. That's great.
That sounds good.
I'm telling you, because I am, and girl, I'm telling you, I will. A pajama day for me, I will take a shower and put on a brand new pair of
Right.
Right. And don't feel guilty about it.
That's it.
Not at all. And I am the nap queen. I believe in naps.
Yes.
Dr. Tom, that's what I was about to say. I'm adding, since I retired, I get me a nap at least 2 or 3 times a week. I got one of those.
Girl, I'd be like one of them kids to be crying, like, I need to go lay down. Okay. Yes. Tanya Ward says, my oncologist spoke to me and encouraged me to rest. One day, she asked me what I did to rest, and I told her I watched Chicago marathons, Perry Mason, and she clearly said to me, that is not resting. Okay, Tanya Ward. Okay. Well, honey, whatever you need to do, because ain't nothing wrong with it. Pajama day on the deck alone with a 1 week time out. That's what you learned from tonight. That's right. Time out. Pajama days are necessary, as Shaki said. Yes. Good. I am so excited. Listen, somebody said I just had one on Saturday. Somebody said they just had a pajama day on Saturday. I'm telling you, we just need a good old national pajama day. You know, who who's in charge of the Facebook National Days? You know, they just be making up days. They be saying,
Well, let's make up a day.
I'm like, who in charge of these days? I mean,
Right.
somebody put the other day it's National Couples Day. I said, I didn't get the memo. I didn't know until the day was over. I said, honey, I didn't put no picture of us out there because I didn't know. But I'm gonna put out tomorrow. It's National Saturday. It's National Pajama Day.
Yeah.
What take a selfie in your pajamas or whatever. All right.
How about the calendar says November the 20th?
November
20th is National Pajama Day.
What? Are you serious? You looked that up?
I just looked it up.
Look, I can't wait till November.
And for those who need some help, they need to start practicing it now so they'll have it down pat.
That's right.
When you do it, you can't feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm telling you, it reminds me of when my kids were small, we would come in from church and we would come in and my husband and I, we're going to get us a Sunday nap. And we tell the children it's corporate nap time. Everybody going to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
So so we need a national pajama day. Ladies, thank you all for spending your Monday evening with me here on this Harmonize Your Life podcast. We're about an hour and 15 minutes in. I don't want to keep you from the rest of your day, but I want to. Somebody had a question for you, Dr. Coleman, about your book. I think they said, what's the title of your book? I think Juanita said, ask what's the title of your book. I think it's the book that you're supposed to be writing. What's the title of that book?
When silence is no longer golden, but we got to get it finished. It's not.
But we need that one finished.
Remember, don't do it to the detriment of yourself. Tell them it'll be out when it's out.
I know.
It'll be out when it's out. And see, even those kind of things, y'all, sometimes we push ourselves to constantly be producing stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so it'll be ready when it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It'll be ready when it's
ready. I'm giving myself grace, so I won't be hard on myself. All right. I'll take that grace. All the grace I could get.
and I'll tell you, like Dr. Renita Weems told me when I was writing my dissertation, she said, you're not writing a dissertation, you're writing a page at a time.
Yes.
Right? And so just take your time. Just take your time. Good. I love this. Ladies, why don't you all put something in the chat or in the comment? Just let us all know one thing that you're taking away from this conversation on tonight. Just one thing that you are taking away from this conversation on tonight. I know Dr. Shaniqua Barnes, I'm taking something from all of you all, but you confirmed for me that whole idea of not rushing and making sure that I don't have so much in my day that I'm late for things or showing up right on time for things, that I give myself time to really be there in enough time to exhale before I move on to the next thing. So thank you for that. That was confirmation for me tonight. Good. So everybody share one thing. Juanita said, I have a few marbles and that's all I need.
Oh yeah.
Desiree, paying attention to compassion fatigue. Excellent. Excellent. Come on, y'all. Put it in there. Put something in here. Let me know what it's okay to step back and away. Good. Catherine says, ask for help when needed. Look at this, y'all. Look at this.
Love it.
Somebody else said the marble jar and the pajama day.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see you, Sister Rhonda. My women walking in the million. Those are my sisters. Yes.
All right. Somebody said taking notes in the national, the National Pajama Day. We're declaring it.
Yes.
All right. Don't be consumed by compassion overload. I love this.
Yes.
Love this. Somebody else said the marble jar. Tanya Ward, the marble jar. Slow down and sit still. Jacqueline Ward. Yes. Sherry Rogers says, Tanya Ward, we'll be praying for you during this healing journey. Good. Not to empty my cup, pouring so much into others. It's okay not to be Superwoman. Yes.
Mhm.
Superwoman is a myth. I talk about that in my book, Harmonize
Yeah.
Your Life. Superwoman
Yeah.
is a myth. That
It
is
is a
not a real
myth.
person. Okay. She's an alien. All right. I will be taking a much needed pajama day. Excellent. Excellent.
Yes.
Not giving so much that is to my detriment. Letting go of those things, letting go of things that are taking too much from me. Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Ashaki says it's okay to disrupt the status quo. All
Yes.
right. Be a disruptor.
Yes.
Dr. Coleman will release that book. All
That's my Dominion sisters. They ain't playing, they pushing, they telling me to drop off some other stuff and get the book done. I hear you.
right. Be a disruptor and speak up. Yes. And speak up for yourself. Right.
Yes.
The disruptor.
Yes.
Right. Let's see who else. Corporate nap day. Asking for help. Yes, yes, yes.
Nice.
So many. It's good to know that the women that are on are taking some things that we can apply to our lives and maybe even take back to our communities and help others, right? So that when we are converted, we can strengthen our sisters.
Yes.
Yes.
When we have been converted, we can strengthen our sisters. We can hold space for one another.
Yeah.
We can encourage one another. We can support one another. And we can hold one another accountable to these principles, right? And then hopefully we'll not just be healthy and whole individuals, but we'll be a healthy and whole community.
Yes.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Healthy and whole community. Well, ladies, thank you all. It's 8:21. I have worried you long enough this evening. Thank you all that came on with us online. This will be on my YouTube channels until ever amen. So you can go back and you can replay it. You can share the link. I'll make sure you all get it and you can share it with your network. Y'all send this to somebody and tell them, hey, you need to listen to this conversation with these women. They are dropping some gems that are helping us live healthy and holistic lives. And so I thank you again for being a part of our podcast community. I thank you for being all of you all for being on the Harmonize Your Life podcast in the season 11. Y'all know I'll be calling on y'all again, so stay close. All right. And when y'all drop new books or whatever, let's talk about it. Let's get on the podcast and let other people know about articles and things that you're writing and other things that you might be doing in the community that we can be of assistance to make sure those things get out to our community. We thank you, Dr. Cheryl Coleman. Thank you, Cynthia Wheeler, Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. Thank you, Paula Birch Jackson, and Dr. Irene M. Abrams. I have been delighted to be your host tonight for this podcast talk back. Look forward to season 12, which will begin on Monday. We'll be doing some work around heart health for the month of February because we know that heart disease is the number one disease that many Black women die from. Heart disease, cardiovascular disease is the number one disease that takes the lives of African Americans. I know we often think it's cancer, but heart disease takes more lives than all cancers combined. And so we have cardiologists coming in with us in the month of February. We're also going to talk about radical self-love in the month of love. We're going to talk about radical self-love in the month of February. So stay with us for season 12. I want to encourage you, ladies, to get registered for the Harmonize Your Life self-care retreat in Costa Rica. We're going to Costa Rica. We're excited about that. So you can go to my website. Let me put that up there. You can go to my website. I want to put my website up there. Where is it? There it is. You can go to drtonyalvarado.com and you can click the link for the self-care network. You can join the self-care network and you can click the link for the self-care retreat so you can get registered and meet us in beautiful Costa Rica. We just got back from Jamaica and we're on our way to Costa Rica, and you can get that information at drtonyalvarado.com. Again, thank you, one and all, for being a part of this podcast conversation. We'll talk with you again real soon.